Would you pause for a moment if I just asked you to pause? My name is Gaurav Ogale, and I want to take all of you with me on a short journey into my world of visuals and imagination. As a creator, my work has always drawn me towards nostalgia and memories. I like to reinterpret aesthetics and visual memory in a very contemporary context. So I consciously align myself with collaborations and collaborators who are equally sensitive and non-conformists. In a visual world, one cannot be just a visitor. One has to be a resident and explorer. But in times of endless Instagram scrolls and trolls, do we have the time to go on endless escapades? Not at least in these unprecedented times. This series was born out of my urge to go on a vacation of imagination. Let me first talk a little bit about the structure of these narratives. This series is untitled. It doesn't have any specific identity or a definition. And that is how I approach most of my work as a chronicler. My academic background has been in filmmaking, screenwriting to be precise. And whenever I watch a film, there are these scenes that stay with me. If I ever rewatch a classic, I always go back to one particular scene or an instance. When I read a book, a sentence or a word stays back with me. So, for this particular series, I wanted to collaborate with artists and creators whose work me and my practice resonate with. Artists who are not confined to one particular faculty of art, design, or creativity. And so I consciously looked at micro formats like haikus, fleeting thoughts, anecdotes, spoken word, poetry, or excerpts. Basically, formats that are intimate, layered, and very, very personal. We as creators always talk about collaboration. I feel in these uncertain times when most of us are in a very introspective kind of a phase, we have really opened up as artists to new mediums and formats and interpretations. And I've been so fortunate to have these extremely sensitive artists for this series who are huge in their respective genres of creativity and craft. But they have been extremely sensitive to this whole idea of collaboration. On a rainy afternoon, precisely I think a day before the lockdown was announced, a very casual and inspiring conversation with theatre actor and director Sheena Khalid led me into her world of nostalgia and an anecdote about Studio Perfection, which is the last photo studio of its kind in Bandra, Mumbai. I really love archives. I love personal archives. I feel, I find recluse in memories and nostalgia. So here is this beautifully narrated piece by the incredible Sheena Khalid.
You know, I might have a picture of you. You took one 6 months ago. Maybe it's still saved. Albert went and checked, and sure enough, there was a passport sized photograph of me. I asked Albert if I could get another copy, and he agreed. He printed out 4 copies, cut them into perfect little squares, stuffed them into a tiny envelope, and wrote on it June 2015, Studio Perfection.
Arunodai Singh's poetry and nuanced writing has always touched me. And when we decided to collaborate, we realized that this could not have been one standalone piece. All his work is like an ongoing conversation. So we looked at 3 beautiful pieces which we picked together from his extensive body of work.
There is a reason dervish spin. There is something within the whirl that flings them out of their bodies, so that for just one fleeting moment They remember they are more than dancing skin.
While I was lost in this, world of the Turkish dervishes, I stumbled upon the work of a Turkish folk music composer, and his piece just like perfectly fit into this tempo of the series. So there again, it talks volumes about this whole idea of collaboration, and that too across boundaries, across borders, and across continents.
Every piece of myself I ever lost or gave away, you collected before you found me and made me whole and stayed.
Let's look at what I call as aesthetics of words. I think in visuals, they come very naturally to me. Or maybe it happens out of overthinking and excessive dreaming. I think it's very important for visual thinkers to isolate themselves and just dream without boundaries before we get on to actually articulating our thoughts. When Lisa Ray sent me extremely sensitive material, it took me a lot of time to think of it visually because it was just so emotional. So I concentrated on what these words made me feel. Words have a personality of their own. They have their own existence, and they are much more than just glyphs or characters. In this process, sometimes work starts getting very meditative, and we immerse ourselves into a feeling, and by the end of it we actually feel what that person must be going through. Lisa's pieces came from that feeling of melancholy mixed with optimism, and that's again a very interesting and a very intriguing combination to work with. In this series of three, I found synergy between Lisa's enunciations and a German harpist, Zena Blacks, whose piece I ended up using. And I just felt that that music filled in all the silences and pauses so beautifully.
I am composed of all the things seen and known and experienced, the emotions of a life lived close to the bone. I can feel it all expanding in my chest, filling my veins. And now, when I debut a new body on the shimmering opacity of the red carpet, I will reveal how fortunate a thing it is when life alters you without warning.
With Kalki Kekla, she came up with a very sharp rhyme mixed with a dollop of sarcasm and wit. So the visuals, which came out, define that mindscape and that thinking. She's an extremely sensitive storyteller, and along with wit, this piece is an ode to the disappearing local coffee haunts that are replaced by global giant coffee chains.
Ode to filter coffee.
I'd like a cup of coffee, please. A latte tall and filled with soya beans. I'd like it served in a paper cup with 3 napkins I will never use up, and a little plastic stirring thingy, and 3 sugar-free sachets, and a little dark chocolate on the side wrapped in a nice golden paquet. And I'd like you to put a big smile on your face and tell me to have a nice day. And I'd like to pay a lot of money for this fat-free, sugar-free, caffeine-free, and taste-free coffee brought to me so delightfully by the land of the democra-free. I'd like to read that literature that comes with the tray. I'd like to read it, but I'll read it later. Besides, I know what it says. It talks about a free trade between a poor Colombian and the kind American aid. I know this because it's a fact, and I paid a lot of money, of course, there's that. I'm sure of it, and that's why I don't mind so much if my coffee tastes like shit.
I would conclude by saying that as a visual thinker, I'm constantly lurching between different worlds of emotions, especially when I'm working on simultaneous projects that are very different from each other in the nature and a sense. Uh, so I would say be your own curator, be your own gallery. Create work that resonates with you first and give away stories where they are needed the most.